What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if Stu will return for the next Scream movie, just titled Scream. You can call it Scream 5. We can call it whatever we want. But, last week we talked about Kirby. It got a pretty positive reception to it, so I felt like this would be a very good follow-up, and I can keep doing these kinds of videos. As I said, I really do want to cover this Scream movie as much as I can, and obviously that'll continue, I guess, to grow and continue to increase in terms of how many videos I do as we get closer to the movie, which is still quite a ways off. But if you guys like these videos, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you have the bell icon turned on, because like I said, I do want to make these videos every so often, and then as we get the trailer, as we get more news in general, I'll be covering it even more, okay? So this one is, in my opinion, probably more interesting than Kirby, although I really liked Kirby as a character. I thought she was phenomenal. Hayden Panettiere, and I do want her to return in Scream 5. This one is something that has always been, I think, in people's minds. This one has more history with the Scream movies, and this one is very much a back and forth as to if it would work, would they actually do it, stuff like that. So, look, you guys have probably heard the talk of Matthew Lillard and Stu, okay? In that, he loves the franchise. He's loved what they have done. That whole cameo in Scream, and it was not actually meant to be, right? That he was just on set that one day, and a lot of people have, ran with that, but that's not actually a thing. The fact that he was supposed to be the person behind basically it all in Scream 3, but then they ended up writing that out, but that was the original vision. Now, that is something that we will probably use in this video to give, I think, a little bit more credibility to if he could come back. But him and Billy are the only two Ghostface killers that have been mentioned in every single movie. So one thing I do think will absolutely happen is I do think we will hear about them again. I absolutely think, at the very least, remember I talked about in the Kirby video, could maybe Neve Campbell, could Sydney, could she name drop Kirby if they wanted to, actually go with the fact that maybe she's just fully dead. That's a thing you think about with these Scream movies, whether or not the crazy theories will end up happening. I mean, the past movies did happen, and they're very, self-referencing of themselves, right? They always talk about themselves. It's very meta. So I think at the very least, and plus also, I mean, it's a franchise. Like, these things have happened. These have all affected Sydney as a person. These are all things that do get brought up from time to time, right? Different things get brought up in different places and in different ways. But for Stu, has been mentioned, all of them, again, could have been the main killer in Scream 3, and now here we are for Scream 5 or the brand new Scream. Is it possible? Well, all right, look. Technically, if we want to go with that original vision, which was only canceled because of, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say certain things, so I'll just say Columbine. That's a seemingly easy enough thing. It was canceled because of that, okay? If that was actually going to happen, then, I mean, in Wes Craven's mind, Stu was alive, and Stu was eventually, he was somehow going to come back from being electrocuted. I mean, I guess technically he never was seen fully dead. Like, we don't know if maybe he could be shocked back to life. I mean, are there ways of them bringing people back that seemingly seemed dead? I mean, yeah, again, even with Kirby is another good example of Wes Craven doing that, where it's like, well, you can make the argument. I mean, with Stu, I think it was a lot more of like, okay, he's just permanently gone. With Kirby, it was a little bit more of an open-ended thing. But if they were originally going to bring him back, and the only reason they canceled it, now, one thing you could say is, well, then why didn't they bring him back for Scream 4? Why wasn't that the original idea there? That's a good question. And I think when we talk about this Scream, look, let me say this, and maybe I should have said this earlier. I think it would be amazing. I think it would be a really, really cool thing for this character to come back. I think that would be insanely full circle in not the most necessary way in the world, but I mean, I just think that would be one of the coolest things to happen in a lot of movies. Obviously, for a movie like this, it would be absolutely incredible, okay? So let me just say that. I want it. I think it would be something that, if done properly and done right, it would make sense. It would work. It would still be honoring Wes Craven's, what he wanted to do in a lot of different ways, all that. There's a couple of main issues, though, and one of which is honestly the same kind of thing as Kirby, where this is, again, a handing of the torch movie. We have a brand new cast. We have a very young cast, a big difference in even age, which, again, is like a generational thing between that cast and now the original. And remember what I said with the Kirby one, where she was kind of in that group with, Emma Roberts and all of them in Scream 4, that was the original first, passing of the torch moment. And so to have Kirby back, well, you'd have a brand new group, a brand new generation. You'd have the generation from Scream 4, and then you'd have the OG cast, okay? To have 3 generations in one Scream movie, I think is asking a bit too much, and that's ultimately, in my mind, one of the biggest reasons why if I have to say Kirby won't be in it, that would be why, okay? Now, again, a name drop, that would, or maybe like you see a picture of her in it, I mean, that would be something kind of cool, right? Another thing to note, too, and I do want to bring this up because I know there's been a lot of theories online. Well, there is one theory that this movie is like a prequel to everything. I don't think that's actually going to be the case. It's a really well thought out theory. I think it's definitely possible. I just don't think it'll happen. But there is another theory, and what I think will probably end up being more likely, that there will be flashback scenes in this movie to the original Scream. If that happens, then I mean, we could very, very well see Stu again. Now, I have always, even the way I'm talking about it, like leading into it right now, when I'm talking about it, I mean Matthew Lillard right now, like him coming back as Stu in the current day. That's what I'm talking about. Do I think that's possible? I do think it's possible. Do I think it's likely? Not really. And again, the reasoning is, he's a character that, yes, is very important to Scream, is a kind of an icon. I mean, obviously the original 3 are obviously absolutely massive, but I would say after that, I mean, Billy is obviously a big one too, but Stu, I would say, is right there with him, where he's maybe even more of a pull, like a magnetic pull, where we just kind of want to see him again. So I think it would work, but again, is Matthew Lillard somebody that they would want to come back? And it's an insulting way of saying it, but Hollywood is insulting in general, and I do mean that because you look at it, and he, obviously he's a big name in some regards, but not really across the board. And as I've said to you guys a couple of times, with this movie, it's going to be interesting because you got to have some star power there. And you have a lot of younger stars, I think, connect with a younger-ish audience, an audience probably in their late teens, early 20s. I know I mentioned, when I talked about Selena Gomez and people said, she's really, I kept referring to her also as like a younger audience, but she's, older and her audience maybe is aged too. I think that's true. I mean, Selena Gomez is 28. I think if you have her as like the opening takeout of the movie, you'd be getting teenagers, but I also do think, people that grew up maybe watching Selena Gomez, they're in their late teens, early 20s. I think that's something too. Again, Matthew Lillard, is he somebody that's even has a pulling name? Not even to be mean, but like Neve Campbell, the only reason why it's a big deal is because Sydney is easily, in my opinion, easily her biggest role, okay, by like a mile. Now, she's a very good actress, and she's been in other stuff, and she's always done a very good job, but I mean, it doesn't, even like Courtney Cox, like, she's older, and like the Friends period, and she is still a big name, I guess, because of that, but she's not like Jennifer Aniston, right? You know what I mean? So you have these characters, they don't have, none of them, I would even argue, even the younger cast doesn't have the biggest pull in the world, but I think put together, they're pretty solid. But the biggest thing with Stu is, if he's the Ghostface killer, if it's like him behind everything, or at least, let's say this movie, Scream 5, or the rebooted Scream, however you want to say it, if he's the person, well, again, you're doing a handing of the torch thing. It's kind of odd to bring back like an original, like from the first one, to do it now. I guess it may also work though, because maybe you want to like completely eliminate all of what's like Scream 1 through 4, and then this one, you want to say, okay, this all happened, let's wrap it up with a very pretty bow, and then maybe Sydney and Neve Campbell can still be in like a future one, but pretty much we have now handed it off to a brand new group with a brand new killer going forward. I mean, they could go that path. It really does go back and forth in my mind. I mean, I could probably list off quite a few reasons why it would be cool and I would want it to, but also about how difficult it would be, and does it make sense logically? Does it make sense from, again, like a production standpoint, from trying to sell the movie on people? If you go see this movie and Stu is the man behind the mask at like the end of it, are people gonna like even know who that is? Are people gonna be excited? Are people gonna be confused? You have to think about your audience, and I think that is that's probably the best way of saying it. The audience could be the main deterrent from getting Stu back, okay? Now again, one final thing, the flashback stuff. I mean, de-aging technology is pretty darn good. I don't love it because I think within like a couple years, it becomes pretty bad. And already a thing with some horror movies, you know, you look like Halloween, as they get better visuals like HD, and then they get 4K and all this stuff, they actually make the movies look worse because they were never intended to do that. Same thing even with like Scream. I mean, like the original Scream, like it looks like it's meant to be like that, okay? And so if you keep upping it, maybe you take some of the spirit away from it. And in my opinion, it's kind of the same thing with de-aging, where it looks good in the moment. You know, they've done with Star Wars. They even did with like Pirates 5, one of my favorite franchises, Pirates, which it looked good, but like, am I going to watch it in 10 years and be like, oh my dear God, like that looks, they should never have done that to Jack, right? Am I going to think things like that? So there's that in my mind for sure. But if they wanted to do a flashback scene and they were really, or maybe even just show literally a reused scene from the original Scream, I mean, is that technically saying Stu is in this new Scream movie because they used the same footage? Or again, you could have a brand new scene, bring back all these actors, and do the best that you possibly can to de-age them. Neve Campbell would probably be the easiest to de-age, but she still looks pretty much the exact same, right? So I think it would be something cool. I think that would be a different way of doing it, where you get to honor the original movie and the original cast, the one that's just, I think, so special to pretty much everyone, but also do it in a way that it makes the most sense, right? Where it's not confusing, it's not going to put too much attention and focus on that character to return, and then suddenly, like, oh my God, like, you're the main killer, like, oh my God, that's such a big deal. But then you may have some people that are at the movie theater saying, who's he? You know, is that a character I'm supposed to know? You know what I mean? It will not work if that happens. If that happens, that's a disaster, and I don't even know if that's something that they would risk even trying, right? So, you know, ultimately, again, I want it. I think it would be cool. I think there are ways of doing it good, and I would trust them if they did it. But at the same time, there's a lot of things I feel working against them, many, many more than bringing back Hayden Panettiere to do Kirby. This is a much harder one, I feel like, to talk about. So, but also a much more interesting one. So, guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Should Stu return? Will he return? Maybe in a flashback? Maybe again, like in his current form. Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. Like I said, I definitely want to do more Scream videos. So if you have any suggestions for me or anything you guys want me to see, totally up to do that. I love, you know, making videos that you guys want to see. So I would absolutely do it. Leave them in the comments. Again, all my other social media stuff is in the description below if you want to support me there. And I will see you all on the next video.